Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's a little after 9 and I think I have the screen shared correctly so that you should see the cover page. That's just today's CNC Mentor webinar series, session 3 with the date. Like last time, we're gonna keep everybody muted and our cameras off for the most part, just to save my poor Wi-Fi. But the presenters will have theirs on so we can see them. And like previously, we'll want to do most of our questions in the chat, but there may be times they will invite you to go ahead and unmute yourself and have a conversation. So with that, let's get going here. So I'm going to start with a mindfulness moment. There is our full agenda for today. So the mindfulness moment, and then SMART goals with Trina Cotterman, followed by suicide prevention with Cathy Davis, and human trafficking awareness and prevention with Allison Smith. Corby Eason had a couple different responsibilities, but luckily he was able to get us Allison, and I think she's going to do a fabulous job, and you're all going to enjoy the presentation. It's one of those you'll need tissues ready, Jeff, presentations, but I still think it's going to be amazing content for everybody. So with that said, today I decided instead of trying to do a guided meditation, instead I would share some information I found on Google, which is 5 tips for teaching mindfulness to at-risk teens. You can see the URL there, and you're welcome to do a quick snapshot of the screen if you'd like, but I will go ahead and make this a PDF and send it out with the post survey so you have access. And it's an article from the Greater Good magazine. It was written by Karen Bluth in May of 2016. And she shares the highs and lows and lessons from teaching mindfulness at a low-income high school. So her first tip is that you need to choose the right space. And this makes a lot of sense to me because I know I get nervous if I'm at the office and I'm trying to meditate. Honestly, I'm just not enough of a trusting person to close my eyes in a group. But what I have found is even if I can't close my eyes, I can still participate. But what Karen Bluth says is the choice of space is paramount. These students that she had worked with were clearly uncomfortable, even distressed being in the classroom, which for them has associations of failure. One student said, if you're in the classroom, you don't really feel relaxed all the way and you wouldn't be able to completely chill in the classroom. And another stated definitively that we're going crazy in the classroom. In contrast, the gym is where they had fun and stuff. So perhaps if you can take them out to a courtyard in the school or even a meeting room to provide a separate space from the classroom so that they feel a little more comfortable of where you're trying to do a mindfulness practice. That is one of her tips. The next one, oops, too far. The next one that Ms. Bluth recommends is involving people they know. She says, when possible, utilize school personnel as assistants in the classroom. Have them at least be present. So even if they don't feel comfortable guiding the mindfulness moment, at least have them present to get the students feeling comfortable and my opinion would be like their buy-in, which she says is validity in the eyes of students. The next tip she recommends is that you have to build trust with them, which I think this group already knows. If you want them to work with you at all, trust is such an important issue. Like I've heard multiple of you say, if you make a commitment, follow through. That is the easiest way. Another idea that Ms. Bluth shared is that she would have lunch with the students. She says, there is something about breaking bread that eases tension and equalizes people. She goes on to say it wasn't easy, but because the students preferred to chat with their friends, but she persisted and she was able to get them to share cell phone pictures of their babies, and she shared pictures of her full-grown daughters with them. So as we know from Check and Connect, persistence plus is necessary and key. Oh, we went one too far. Let's back up there. Okay, so number 4 is give them freedom to choose. I think this is one of the areas we can give students an ability to choose. But like she says, developmentally, they're at a stage they may feel they should be able to make the decision for themselves, and yet often are not mature enough to do so. But this is one of those areas where we can let them make that choice. But that doesn't mean they can be disruptful or derogatory for the students who are participating. So remind them if they're going to choose out of participating, they just need to sit quietly. And then her fifth suggestion, or excuse me, tip, is be flexible with your curriculum, within reason, of course. You don't want it to get out of hand. She says most mindfulness activities are designed to get at the same thing, to bring awareness and non-judgmental acceptance of present moment experiences. I focus on her statement here, non-judgmental acceptance, because even when I'm meditating, I get frustrated with myself that I was distracted. So that's one of the things I'm working on, is learning to forgive myself and take a breath and go back to the practice. And her example is when engaging with restorative yoga, students listen to relaxing New Age music and were invited to turn their attention toward the sounds when their minds drifted, to bring them back to attention with the music. So those were her 5 tips. And like I said, I will go ahead and share that link out so that you guys can read the full article in depth. I just kind of grabbed the first couple paragraphs of each tip so that we didn't take all day on this particular conversation. So next we will be hearing from the amazing Trina Cotterman. She was so cute when I asked her for a bio. I made her laugh. And so she worked with Ann Jones, who's the Granite coordinator, to come up with this. So Trina Cotterman has been a mentor with the Granite School District YES program for 21 years. She's a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 4, including twin granddaughters. That is an amazing feat, Trina. You're an amazing woman. She has vast experience and understanding with the best monitoring practices, special education, 504, DCFS, and community resources. Her greatest assets have been her ability to connect with students and family and to customize her visits to best benefit each child. She is always looking for ways to help students be successful in school and in their lives. Recently, she has been using her tech skills to convert all of the mentoring paperwork to Google files. Granite mentors now have all of their files online thanks to, oh goodness, we pushed the wrong button, bear with me, let's get back there. Oh, thanks to Trina's hard work. And this has been incredibly helpful in sharing school information with caseworkers, courts, and foster parents. Trina has mentored thousands of students over the years and has made a difference in many lives. We are very lucky, well, Granite is very lucky to have her on the team. With that, I will go ahead and invite Trina to unmute and turn her camera on. And I'm gonna stop sharing here so that she can start.
I'm getting my screen up with everything. Thanks.
Thanks, Trina. No worries. It takes a minute to get it going.
It does. Wait. Okay. Okay. Can you see? Can you hear me? No.
I muted myself.
Okay. All right. Can you see the screen? Can you hear me? Is all as well?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So thanks, Anne, for that log thing. And I did laugh. It was crazy to think that I'd have to talk about myself, but that's not something I do. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this. And so the introduction I have is, we all know setting goals is a vital practice that can be benefited with anyone who has a dream or vision for the future. The young people we have the privilege to work with are starting out on a journey with a disrupted life. It is our opportune time to help them develop some goal-setting skills, not only will these skills serve them throughout their lives, but build them now to mold their future to one that they desire. Sometimes these kiddos don't really see a dream, or they don't know that they can do something more than what they have. And so sometimes giving them a vision or seeing small, simple things that they can achieve is our job. Why is goal setting important to our youth? Our goals are the first step towards planning for the future. It's a fundamental role that we need to help develop with this skill, because it's a part of everyone's facets of life. It's from school to work, anything in between. It's really a vital thing that all of us do, and they need to do. I'm going to refer a lot to goal setting and the SMART goal as a mentor plan, because I believe that the mentor plan, there's more to it, but a big fundamental part of it is a SMART goal, and what a SMART goal offers the skills and a way to develop a successful plan. With our students, not only exposing them to this mentor plan, it gives them, and goal setting, it gives them the mechanics and techniques of a goal, but it also gives them an opportunity to experience early wins and develop themselves, believe in themselves, a focus also, and a purpose for our connection and our time and our visit with them. How do students gain benefit from the mentor's plan? I kind of divide it in two different things, because elementary students level is a little more different than a secondary student. So a mentor plan or SMART goal planning provides direction for not only the student but the mentors. It clarifies and how important is different things that are important for them. It improves their decision making. It gives them self-knowledge. It gives them direction and focus. It also gives them an opportunity to hope for things, to work for things. It gives them also a positive experience of when they achieve them, and we can celebrate a reached goal. Aside for a secondary student, from helping them believe in themselves and setting up for school success, it can improve their self-image, bring awareness and strengths to strengthen their weaknesses that you can have a conversation with and to support. They clarify a plan, encourages them to learn how to prioritize and to make decisions. It also helps them to do the big thing, which is to help things that are wished for become reality. And again, to experience a win. What mentor plans are effective with us for kids and teens? It is Check and Connect uses the SMART goal as the model. It increases success and provides feedback on a student's progress. There are some skills that are required for it, and the good news is that everyone can learn how to do these skills and what those things are through practice. I'm going to quickly kind of go over the SMART model and just kind of give you the breakdown. You can actually have the more specifics. We all know that SMART means S, specific. It's important to be specific. It defines what you want to achieve. It also is the conversation to have with a student that says, who needs to complete this goal, and how do we support them, and who's going to do what in this connection and this progress of working together. We want to make sure that it's achievable, that looking at the why, the what, the where, when, and how it will go, to know that it is really a sound goal. M is measurable. It tells us what and when we achieve. It's kind of the definition of how we're going to measure the goal. It's where we use the numbers, facts, reports. It tells us that we need to know and ask the questions, how are we going to do this? How much time is it going to be necessary? Or how often do we need to check in? And how frequent, just those kind of important pieces to measure how things are going, if it can be accomplished, and when it can be accomplished. The A is attainable. This is the balance between the effort required and the effort put in. Both of those things must be worth it for the person. Goals that can be reached need to be broken down into steps. We want to make sure that what they're wanting to do or what we're working towards is something that is realistic for them. We need to make sure that when we do this attainable, that we're making sure that we're having an opportunity to have success breeding success, that we're not allowing their bubble to be burst. We want to make sure that we're meeting small goals so that we have lots of success to keep them going towards it, because it's really hard to save a relationship or a goal or their desire or their motivation if we're not mindful of what they're capable of doing, so that we do not burst their bubble. The R is relevant. Discuss the importance of the goal to them. Ask why this goal, what makes the goal, relate to their interests. Make sure that there's something that they can do, that they want to do, and that have the conversation that says, will this make a difference in your life, in your school? How will it make a difference with you if you were to accomplish this goal? T is timely. Deadlines maximize reward. That's really important, that we set up reasonable time. We kind of have a time limit when we work with kids in school, right? So it comes down to sometimes it's quarters, midterms. It can be weekly. It can be a monthly thing, things that are done, because in a school setting, that's where we have our visits and our time. The expectations with a checkpoint for goals to be a positive experience. We want to make sure that when we put these time limits, that we're not putting stress on that student to cause that to become a negative thing. We want to make sure it's positive. We need to make sure we're asking, how long do you need to accomplish this goal? What kind of timing do you have available to put towards this goal? Those kind of conversations would be helpful to setting the goal. As mentors, how do we introduce the SMART goal model with our students? Mentor plan. I think for me, I work the mentor plan to be a bigger picture of lots of different things. Some of them, sometimes it's their story and things that they have going on in their life, how I can help with that. But I need to make sure that my SMART goal also is part of that. So how do we just say, we're going to have a SMART goal time and just put it out there, or put a piece of paper out and say, let's sit down and work through this one sheet. I think that what I do is I use worksheets and activities. They provide a low pressure context and a high engagement interaction with them. I found that when I do this, it makes it so that they're more engaging and more interested in participating in setting goals, because they're not really happy. One that I use with my elementary kids is called 3 Stars and a Wish. There's a worksheet that comes with it. And this is kind of fun. It gives them an opportunity to celebrate the things they know they're really good at. The 3 stars is, I try to make sure that they have I encourage to have at least two out of the 3 to be about education. Have them talk about things they're really great about in school, with friendships or following just circumstances, and just let them celebrate and talk about all those, and describe and write some of those things down so that you can validate and celebrate the things that they're good at and write those 3 down. The wish is how you approach that is, how can you support what's something you want to do better, that you want to support those 3 stars to be stronger. And so we talk about some of those things, and that ends up being the goal. And that's just an activity that leads us. The second one, that's a little more older, elementary and all secondary, I call SMARTIES. Again, it's to kind of set up an activity that's fun, exciting to be able to stimulate an activity that stimulates a conversation and brings attention to how they learn, how they are motivated for us as a mentor, but also to see that they can set goals, that they can accomplish something and do some things that's kind of could be hard. So a little example, a little summary of this is the items you would need to have on hand would be 2 rolls of Smartie candies and a copy of the Smartie record. It can just be a piece of paper that you have, and then a timer with an alarm for 1 minute. I use my iPad or my watch or my cell phone that has a timer, and that is set for 1 minute. This is the instruction. I'm just kind of summarize it. Is the concept of this is for them to say, you're going to stack Smarties in 1 column, 1 hand in 1 minute. with that task, how many do you think you can stack? They write that number down. Then you tell them, now the important part is that in that 1 minute, in the rush, after the timer goes off, you have to count together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 5 more seconds, so that if anything falls, it's done, because you can only count and score the remaining standing Smarties. And so we go through this and the kids just absolutely get so excited. Then I tell them we're going to do 3 rounds. And then I said, so the first one is again, and we repeat together, 1 column, one column, 1 hand, 1 minute. And then count to 5. And then we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then I said, we wrote your goal down. I'm going to start the buzzer. So ready, set, go. And then they do that. And they get so excited and things like that. And then when the timer goes up, we count, and then we score the remaining standing Smarties. And on the next page, it tells you how you score that. Then I do a second round, and I tell them, okay, we're gonna do a second round. Look what you did. This is your goal. This is how many you did. This is what you thought. What do you need to do differently? Or what do you think you can do better now that you understand? And then let's write a goal. So they write it down. And then I change it up on them a little bit. I said, okay, now that you've done it with one hand, I want you to do it with your non-dominant hand. So if you were using your good hand that you know is so good, you're going to use the other hand that doesn't work as well. I mean, it's not as strong. And so they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, the goal. I said, give it a try. So that we do again, remember 1 column, 1 hand, 1 minute, and ready, set, go. And then they do that. So then the third time we kind of do that same process, work through it. And I tell them at the very end, I said, now you only get to use your pinkies. Sometimes they'll even want to do a 4th one. It's just like Trina and a competition thing with me. How many do you think you can do? And we have that little interaction piece, makes it really fun. But after we're all done with these things, one of the things that's real important, those are like I said, the next the slide would show the rounds. That's kind of the information. I do what I call a debrief and a reflection of the activity, that we talk about how did your goal and accuracy change the rounds went on. And we talk about why and how. Then the other question that I ask is, what influences came into play? How did you respond to when things were falling over, when something was happening? And sometimes if they have swearing problems, they did swear and they always apologize to me. But the most part is they just got really interested and into it. What was the best round? Why did you like that round better, and why? And what motivated you? And the main thing why I encourage what motivated them is because that'll help you as a mentor to understand what it is that motivates them. They have to think about it. They have to identify that part. And they're usually very good at telling you what and how. And then what lessons about goal setting can draw from this. So this is the points system. By stacking the candies, 5 seconds after the buzzer, you get to, if your goal is not reached, you can only count 5 points for everyone that's standing. If you reach your goal, you get to count 10 for all of those, and then you get to count for all the additional ones that were above at 5 points. And it gives them some math skills, it gives some interactions, and kids really love this, and it gives an opportunity for me to then talk about goals, and it opens doors to have that communication. The other activity that I do is called Ask Fun Questions. Asking questions in a great way tells the children and students to think about what's important to them, what they like to achieve and accomplish, and how are they going to get there. This is the instructions and some suggestions of a couple of examples of questions. What's really important here is for you to listen to what they're saying, to write down some of the details of the things they're saying, because that's real important to help you understand how to do those goals, set those goals, and to hear things that would be helpful and useful. And then we always discuss how to plan and to see that you can have hopes and you can have goals and you can have dreams, and let's see what we can do to make them real to you and to have some success and wins. I am going to share now an activity, that one of ask a question. I was asking my student about this question. If I was a fly on a wall, what would I hear your teacher say about you? This little kid, he was an elementary kid, and I said, what does that mean? And he said, oh, my teacher would say, oh, you need to sit down. He would say, Bobby, go sit down. or if he says she would say, you need to raise your hand. I can't call on you until you raise your hand. You might have the right answer, but I need you to raise your right hand. He was very detailed. And she says, and sometimes she would walk me back over to sit in my chair because I was over here by my friends. And so I realized with that simple little question, I developed my SMART plan, which was the goal setting part of SMART, which was the goal was improve behavior of talking out and sitting in a seat. So that this, and one of the things in the conversation is I asked, why would that be important to you? Why would you want to try to do better? Because he says, I need to be better at that. They've got me having to do tally marks. So they kind of had already started to do that. So I just jumped on the bandwagon with the team at the school, and he really wanted to have a bling award. And so they had been doing this for a while, trying to get him to do the tally marks, trying to do the part of keeping him engaged, of following what they wanted, sitting in a seat, raising his hands, less talkouts. And I added my part, which was weekly contacts with the student and the teacher. I had him set a goal when he thought he could have it done, and I added another piece of favorite snack or treat, that when he achieved this bling assembly for having good behavior, what other food item that I could give him a reward, and he gave that to me. So those things, we wanted to reduce the tally sheets every week I came by 3 or 4. We wanted to make sure that the tally sheet, he was keeping an honest tally sheet, that the teachers were reviewing it 3 times a day, things along that line. And then it was attainable. When it was attainable, we made that celebration. So that's kind of my summary of how I work out my SMART goal, an example of if you ask a fun question, how you would work that into a SMART goal plan. The next one is called Goal Ladder. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. And it's definitely one that a lot of people do use, because you kind of start with the goal at the top and then you kind of work your way, or, go at the top and then you make sure you show a staircase or a picture of one, or something I always use, which step have you reached today? So when we visit, we talk about those kinds of ways to keep going towards the goal. So those are some of the examples. The first is you've got to have the dream, you got to have the wish. You've got to set up things that need to be done and chunk their goals and work that they need to do to make that happen. So there's a couple of examples there, but I'm going to share one that's personal of how I use it several times with my kids. One of them, in just visiting, one of my students told me he wanted his grade to be better, and he wanted not to be the only kid in the classroom that didn't turn in reading logs. His teacher would ask every day, and I guess you have to say the teacher basically said, you're the only kid that said to the student in front of it, you're the only kid that does not turn in a reading log. You want a better grade, you got to turn a reading log. And that, I guess, happened to him on the day I visited, so it was resonated in his head. So I connected his request that he wanted this wish or this goal with the goal ladder plan. And this was my goal that I put together with a SMART goal, to improve his reading grade at the end of term by reading with me weekly and daily at home. That students would write down a reward prize again to something that he wanted besides that was something to work towards on a regular basis. Again, it was weekly contacts, quarterly reports. It was bringing one of the things that I made him be responsible for was bringing his book to read to me every week I was there. He always knew that it was me coming. He would bring the book. When I would read, I would document the minutes. I would turn it into the teacher. So he would always have a win that in that week he had minutes to turn in, so that he would have that physical connection of doing that. So the more that he got to turn in, the more he would read. And by that happening, he then started making that happen in his home. But I also added to my relevance and responsibility that I would reach out to the parents and encourage them to do the log and say, guess what, this week is the log. It's in a text or it's in an email, and let them know that the student was really wanting that to happen. And again, we recognized at the very end of the term, he was so excited that he wanted to keep doing that. And we did it for a whole year of helping him improve his reading logs, because he was reading more. So his grade there went up, and his skills across the board in reading for math and science and social studies all improved. So that was how I used the goal ladder. The interest maps, this is one that we talked about in our own staff meeting, that a lot of my coworkers, they do this kind of mapping and activity. And I never really had used this until a student kind of did it on her own. It just kind of presented itself to me. So those are some of the helps and tips. But while we were visiting, she was expressing all these interests that she had. And she was talking, I was like, oh, I should probably do this map. So I was like, have you ever done an interest map? And she's like, no. So we went through and I took her ideas and her expressions and her interests, and we wrote them down in visual and put them together in categories and things that were commonly that needed to be done. We worked out this map to find out what was going on, and all on her own. As we did this process, she turned to me and she says, oh my gosh, I need to have better grades. I've got to, if I want to achieve these things, every single thing I need to have a 3.0 or higher GPA. How am I going to do that, Trina? And so I wrote up our SMART plan for her to be about better grades, and that she would turn assignments on time. That was her thing. She would get her work in, but she wouldn't turn on time. It was always at the very end. It was a crunch and there was lots of pressure. So she never really had all of her assignments in. Sometimes they were late. So we just focused on turning in work on time. So we talked about how planning her time and her schedule and doing the A day work on A day homework and B day on B day homework. And I checked weekly, and we pulled up assignments, and we kept in contact with teachers, and she was not dreading the midterms anymore and quarterly reports. She was excited to see what was on them, because she knew that we had done the work, that she would have the success of the higher grades. And the 3.0 was our goal. But doing these things, she ended up in the 3.4, 3.5 range. And so it's real important that we do those things. It makes it so that not only do they have what they want to go, I try to make sure that I have an individual reward for me, for them working hard and working with me. And in our district, we have a certificate for honor roll students, and she made that honor roll with a certificate and a gift card to use. How can we best help students achieve the plan and the goals they've set? I've kind of gone over some of those things, but expect results. Goals that are too general, too ambitious, or something they weren't entirely committed is going to be a fail. It can turn into a fail. So to tackle this, we need to make sure that our mentor plan has a SMART goal that is driving our visits. When we visit with our students, their stories and the support and things we need to do is part of our visit. But the mentor plan that's where that falls on the mentor plan. But the SMART goal is the vehicle and the drive that puts us to success. We might need to be very mindful of making motivations. Things might arise and have problems, and we need to make sure that the time's passing, how you doing on this, and be a time management person for them. The other thing is we might need to help them be able to recover from barriers and show them how to be flexible when things aren't going as planned, and how to keep their eye towards the things that they need to do. We might need to recommend them to, be focused and to be mindful that you're aware of the things that's going on to them. But as a mentor, our number one goal needs to be to have a SMART goal be successful, is to be mindful that they don't have an interest. If they haven't bought into the plan, there will be no success, and we will be bursting bubbles. We need to, again, make sure that we're not bursting bubbles, but having them have success, breeding success. In closing, these pictures, I'm sure all of you have seen this artwork before, or might be familiar with it, but not only is he famous for artwork of all kinds, when you look up SMART goals and goal settings and things like this is a quote from Picasso that says, oh, sorry, let me go back. Sorry, it went too fast. Our goal can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan. Sorry, a plan. And all my stuff just flipped out. Sorry. A plan, and which is vigorously, we must fervently believe, and upon which we must vigorously act. There's no other route to success, and that's from Picasso. I have a take-home message, and it's kind of for us as the actual mentors. We have the capability to achieve our own personal expectations through our own personal goal setting. And we can raise the bar in relation to our own potential and put ourselves to achieve things that we hope are possible. The good news, when at the very beginning of this presentation, I said that there's learning. This can be done through practice. So I'm challenging everyone to go and do your own personal SMART goal. Go find a way, review those SMART acronyms and tips and guidelines so that you can become a master of your own goal setting, so that you can share that with your students. And I've done that, and I've shared it with my kids, like, I did this and this is what happened, and had a conversation so they see that it's not just us trying to, that it doesn't matter. It's not just a school thing. It's not a YIC, a youth in care thing. It's not it's for everybody. And the final thing is, share this video at another time. Check it out so you can see it's fun. So thank you.
Thank you, Trina. That's awesome. So we did have a request. Are you able to share this PowerPoint as maybe a PDF I could send out?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. So let's see. If you will do the
I am.
You are awesome. I love it. You guys are so great to work with. All right. So, oops. And then I'm fighting with my computer now. Bear with me just a moment. All right. So next, we're going to hear from Cathy Davis, who I had the pleasure of supporting before I came back to the Youth and Care team. It was actually the second time I had supported Cathy at my time at USBE. She taught ecology, biology, and health sciences, which are anatomy and physiology, for over 18 years. For 7 of those years, Cathy also taught school success to at-risk students. She's a small business owner and a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. Cathy has training in eating disorders, grief counseling, trauma-informed care, and is certified with the American Association for Suicidology as a suicide prevention specialist. Cathy is currently the suicide prevention specialist for the State Board of Education, and an amazing human being. If you haven't met Cathy, you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing again so that Miss Cathy can take over if she's ready. If not, Cathy, holler out and I will get your PowerPoint open. You just let me know. Oh, there we go, as usual.
Are you all set?
Yep, so I will go ahead and mute and turn off my camera, but just holler if you need me.
Okay. Hopefully you can all see, can you all see the screen okay? All right, just as we're getting started, what I would want to do, and please use your chat function for this part, is I want you to go back in time to when you had one of those terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days at school, and someone actually had to just walk you home because you were so emotionally distressed and didn't know what you were going to do. But who is that person in your life that when you're having that awful day, they can walk you home and help you realize that everything's going to be okay and things do get better? So I just want you to let's start seeing in the chat if you have somebody in your life that's like that for you. So, and I can't tell what's going on, but anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to just start out with something like that, just because I think it's really good to first and foremost realize that you are that kind of person for someone else right now. As Amanda said in the introduction, I was a school success teacher, but what she didn't explain was at that time in Murray School District, they closed down the alternative program And my program, School Success, became like an alternative program and everything. It became just everything. I called my classroom the land of misfit toys, because we were just trying to figure it out as we went. So as I became the suicide prevention specialist, I was able to draw from all of that experience from being a teacher that was dealing with kids with really complex mental health needs, food insecurity, lots of kids that were gang involved, and all of that. And so as I've developed suicide prevention through the years, I've kind of kept that in mind. So as I go through here, if you have questions, you can put it in the chat, and Amanda can kind of help me with that. So
Yeah, Cathy, I was just going to jump in. So it's harder to presenter view, but your menu, I think, hovers at the top or the bottom, and it's under your more that will open if you want to. But I'm watching it for you, and you're getting lots of comments about husbands, friends, children. One says my mama, which I love that one.
Good.
Friends, kids, husbands, coworkers, wife and parents. So yeah, those are the folks that are their Wacom homes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So in this first slide, you'll see that right now, Utah ranks 9th in the nation, and we're so proud of this because if you go back even just last year, we were ranked 6th in the nation. So we are making some strides in suicide prevention. But if you also notice in this area, we have a lot of the top 10 are in this Rocky Mountain region. And this is because they're rural areas, they're areas where there's a lot of gun ownership and that type of thing. So a lot of times people will ask me, so do youth have the highest rate of suicide? And it's actually only 6% of total suicides in Utah are youth suicides. And you'll notice that adults between the ages of 25 and 64 have one of the highest rates, as well as older adults, 65 and older. So the first thing that I always do when I start a conversation about suicide is talking about the importance of language and how you talk about it. And I always preface this with a story. I was a single parent for about 7 years, and my son had some really complex behavioral needs and everything. And I'll never forget being at a parent-teacher conference, and the teacher said to me, she said, well, Cathy, I understand that Jonathan comes from a broken home. How many of you guys have ever heard that term broken home, and you're a single parent, and what that just does to you? And so I really had a tough time with that. Had to have a little come to Jesus with that teacher, because when it really evokes that much emotion in me, I have to let them know that it's really tough. So let me go back to this other slide. So when you're talking about language and suicide prevention, the thing that I think is the most offensive to survivors of suicide loss is saying committed suicide. It's so important how you talk about suicide, and it's really important to model appropriate language. So we avoid using the phrase committed suicide because it can have a real negative connotation. So we encourage phrases like died by suicide, ended their life, or killed himself or herself. You never know what that young person's experience with suicide is like. I have had students that have actually, been in situations where they've lost a parent to suicide or lost a brother or a sister. So really keep this in mind as you're doing this. Okay. So in this next slide, when you understand suicide, the thing that I like to emphasize is I always go back to 9/11, and I think I learned this from my dear friend Taryn when she explains suicide. When we were there watching the towers on fire, and a lot of people saw that there were people in the Twin Towers that were just leaping from the buildings. And as we saw these folks leaping from the buildings, we didn't say that they were taking their lives by suicide. We realized that they were just even though they were taking their lives by suicide, they were trying to escape just this unbearable pain. So because of this, most people experience intense uncertainty about suicide. Part of the person wants to be hopeful and connected to people. And that's what you want to do, is you want to connect them to those reasons for living, because everyone has reasons for living. So as I do suicide prevention, I use a lot of tools to help people understand steps to respond to youth suicide. So I actually borrowed this from Forefront Suicide Prevention in Washington, and it's the acrostic LEARN. And LEARN stands for look for warning signs, empathize, ask about suicide, restrict lethal means, and next level of care. So I think I have this on a time thing, so it goes really fast. So I'm sorry for going back through here, but I will give you these slides. I actually gave these to Amanda, and you can have these. So learning the facts, when you talk about this, facts just represents feelings such as those of hopelessness about the future. And so F is the feelings. A represents actions such as displaying severe or overwhelming pain or distress. C stands for changes like worrisome behavioral cues or marked changes in behavior. This could also be things like withdrawing from your friends and your family, or just changes in social activities. The T represents threats or talk, and this is about the things that they talk about, write about, or make plans for. And then finally, S represents situations. Situations are really stressful for kids. And for kids, lots of stressful situations are things like getting in trouble at school, getting in trouble with the law, you know, getting a really bad grade, being humiliated, all of those kinds of things. So when we go into the L, which is learn, you want to look at all of those facts and you look for the warning signs. And if that particular youth has had a suicide attempt in the past, that's something to also be really aware of. Or if they have family members that have died by suicide or have had attempts. Okay. So the next one, E, and we can't show videos in here, but I'll share with Amanda some video links that are really helpful. Empathize is so important. My mom used to say, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. So listening is not the same as waiting to speak. So I'm concerned about you and what's going on in your life. So these are some ways that you can be really empathetic with kids. I like the third one, and I'll show this to you again. It says, we can't make the problem magically go away, but we can get you to a place where you can have more control. With kids, it's all about strategies. It's all about what can I teach them so that they can have the coping skills to deal with difficult situations, whether that's mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques, emotional regulation, what have you. The ask, and this is something I get asked all the time, like, well, I'm really afraid to ask them. Well, that's why you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I once had a student that said, Miss D, you're gonna be so mad at me. I don't know what to say, but I'm just a little bit, and she paused and she said, pregnant. And I said, a little bit pregnant? And so when you think about these things and asking these uncomfortable questions, you really want to put the person at ease and let them know that this is a situation where suicidal thoughts are really, really common. If people understood just how common they were, they'd realize that there's a way to see, are those suicidal thoughts somehow coming to kids' mind because they're so stressed and they have to have those thoughts to somehow bring that stress level down in their life. So another thing that you can do is, these are 3 things that have really helped as I've taught people how to ask about suicide. The first one is really setting the stage and saying, with all the stress and painful emotions you're describing to me, it's really understandable if you had thoughts of ending your life. And so what you do for the student or that person that you're working with is you say, you're validating their experience and saying, this is really, really tough. Like, sometimes people that are going through a divorce or whose parents are splitting up feel like they don't want to live anymore, or sometimes they think about killing themselves. And then you just say, you're not alone, and have you been having thoughts like these? So the next one, oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way, is keeping those young people safe. So if you're in a situation with someone that is suicidal, you will have protocols at your school. And one of the protocols that we are really trying to implement with folks across the state is keeping that young person safe. So if that person is having suicidal thoughts and is actively suicidal, you want to keep their learning environment safe and their home environment safe. So restricting fatal means is one of the most effective ways to prevent suicide, because you're putting time and space between that suicidal person and the act. So most kids that take their lives are really acting on impulse. They're really driven by this temporary problem, such as the end of a romantic relationship. Teens often plan their suicide for just less than 5 minutes. So if with that impulsivity, if you can put time and space and that's not available, the firearm or the pills or what have you, then they're not going to go on and take their lives by suicide. Then the final thing is the N is next level of care. So I know a lot of you folks are working in different settings, but one thing I want to just emphasize for you is become really familiar with how you make a warm handoff at your school. So if you have a kid that is suicidal, you are covered by the law and you can ask them if they are suicidal. A lot of people say, well, if I ask them if they're suicidal, can I actually do that? Yes, there is a law on the books that protects you, but it says that is with the purpose to connect them with their parents, their legal guardian, or their foster parents, or whomever is in charge of that young person. So talk to your school psychologist, school counselor, school social worker, school nurse, or whoever is your crisis response team. So here are kind of just an example of all the people that could be school employed mental health professionals for you. So once you do that, or if you are not in a capacity to do that, you can oftentimes call the Safe UT line, you can call the crisis response line, you can also call 911. So there's lots of ways to get in connection with ways to make that child safe. So it's just an overview of all the different folks that can help you at your school. And these next couple slides are just some calls to action for you guys of what you can do. Just last Friday, and it really launched last Friday, there's a statewide multi-million-dollar campaign called Live On. And this is something that and I'll give you you can type in liveon.com or Utah Suicide Prevention, and it'll connect you to this. But their mantra of hope, Live On, is this statewide effort to prevent suicide by promoting education, providing resources, and really changing our culture around suicide and mental health. Together we can get through, reach out, lift up, look ahead, and live on. And then the final slide are just 2 trainings that are available to you for free. The first one is 15 minutes, and I just went through it earlier this morning. It's fabulous. It's brought on by Intermountain Healthcare. And if you don't have a lot of time, but just want to review some of the principles of suicide prevention and intervention, it's an interactive training. It really says it takes 15 minutes, but I did it in like 10. And then if you have more time and you want to really go in depth, I created the youth suicide prevention training for employees. And this is the information on how you can access this, and you can get 2 hours of suicide prevention training. And it's very comprehensive. It goes through legal requirements and anything else that you might want to know. So I went through that really quickly. So Amanda, if you'll help me out, if there's any questions or anything that I can go back to, Amanda, would you be able to put up the one slide that goes over Learn? It's one of the 2 handouts that I gave you.
Yeah, so if you go ahead and hit the stop sharing on your end, I will open that.
Okay, I will do that.
Just need to grab it real quick. So everybody bear with us for just a minute. You said that was
okay, I've got 3 screens. I'm just trying to get to it.
So
okay, there we go.
All right, awesome. Thank you. And I understand I keep clicking on the wrong thing myself this morning. So, okay, this should be your handout. Let's see if I did it right. Are you seeing it?
Yeah, so this is something that you can all utilize. And this, I think it really helps just to break it down so that you can know in just 5 easy steps of how to intervene for suicide. And then I would also really make sure that you have online, and then we also have a number of pamphlets that we are going to be distributing out, and we'll distribute out to all the Check and Connect mentors, and I think magic cubes too, coping cubes, right?
Yeah, I think that's our hope. Absolutely. We just got to get purchasing stuff and fiscal year stuff. So,
and then if you wouldn't mind sharing the other handout, that would be great. The one about the pandemic.
We'll just get that open here and make it so we can see it.
Okay. All right. And I don't know how many of you have been involved with responding to a suicide death or a faculty death, but during the COVID-19 scare, we developed this protocol because I think you really need to be prepared for just about any situation that might come up. Would you mind just scrolling up here for a minute? Yeah, just right there. Anything I do has a quote by Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers is my favorite. And I just want to read this for you because when I think of someone walking me home after a really bad day, I think of someone like Fred Rogers. At many times throughout their lives, children will feel the world has turned topsy-turvy. It's not the ever-present smile that will help them feel secure. It's knowing that love can hold many feelings, including sadness, and that they can count on the people they love to be with them until the world turns right side up again. And I think that's one quote I want to leave you with about just the impact that you make. These kids put footprints on your heart and you will never be the same, but you do the same for them. And keep that in mind. And I'm so grateful to be able to present today. And you are so blessed to have Amanda as your leader. I am so grateful to be able to be associated with her.
Well, thank you, Miss Cathy. We do have a minute or two, folks. So if anybody does have a follow-up question, the chat is open on my screen, or you could do the thumbs up to give me an idea that you want to talk, and then I can unmute you. Or if there's anything you want to share out, let's just have a minute here.
And then Amanda, if you'll scroll up just to that's an example notification email, but the guidelines for family and caregivers. I think this is something that's really helpful to give to your families, and just to keep in mind for yourself about how to deal with uncertainty. Kids hate uncertainty. They like things to be structured, and when there's uncertainty, you have to create certainty for your kids through routines, through being that constant connection for them, being someone that they can count on. And I think more than anything else is, if they feel they can count on you, that's a question that they are going to ask more than anything else is, can I count on you?
Thank you so much, Cathy. This was awesome. This is exactly what I was hoping for.
Oh, good. As
As usual, you're just amazing. So,
oh, thanks.